Hey guys, welcome back to Project Bodybuilding. Today we have the final recap of the 2023 competitive season. In today's video, I will be recapping the 2023 Legion Sports Fest. Being the last show of the season, we had some good lineups and the results ranged from expected all the way up to a major upset. We have a lot to get into today. I'm going to be recapping the Classic Division, Open Bodybuilding, and Men's Physique. If you guys like these types of videos, go ahead and hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date whenever a new recap drops. Alright, starting with Men's Physique, here was your top 5. 5th, Tyler Smith. 4th, Ruben Glass. 3rd, Andre Ferguson. 2nd, Aaron Banks. And winning his 5th Legion Sports title, Kyron Holden. Most important thing we need to talk about is Kyron upsetting Aaron. First, I want to give credit to where it's due. Aaron just decided to compete at a normal pro show. We hardly ever see a current Mr. Olympia across any division compete at any show besides the Olympia, sometimes the Arnold, but Aaron jumped into this show, the Legion Sports Fest, as a bit of a warm-up, as he called it. So, props to him. We hardly ever see this. We used to see this a lot back in the 90s and back in the day, but now we just don't see this at all. Now, Kyron kind of came out of nowhere. No one going in here expected Aaron not to win. Aaron is Mr. Olympia for now, and the current Arnold champ after all. Don't get me wrong, Kyron looked good a week ago in a show that he used to qualify for this Olympia, the Daytona Pro, I believe it's called. But again, he was 6th at last year's Olympia. So yeah, he looked good at his pro win before this, but only being top 6 in the world and then upsetting the Olympia champion was highly unexpected. Now, I'm not a big fan of Men's Physique. I don't follow it a whole lot, and I'm not the best Men's Physique judge, but here's what happened in my eyes. From the front, it was Kyron easily. The abs were Kyron's, more separated, and the stomach was a bit more sunken in. The abs themselves may be close, but the overall midsection as a whole was easily Kyron's, and his taper was miles ahead of Aaron's. The arms and shoulders, we all know Aaron's shoulders are huge to say the least, maybe a bit suspect, but his arms are very thin compared to those bolder shoulders. Kyron has good shoulders, but the arms to match. I appreciate the balance with Kyron, and Aaron's delts are just way too jarring for me, so Kyron takes the arms and shoulders. In the pecs, I find both guys to be about the same. No one really drops the ball anyway. Now, this is where it gets interesting because the legs are technically not a part of the bigger judging criteria yet. I believe the IFBB and NPC are going to implement some different judging criteria after this year's Olympia, but I still believe this plays a slight role, subconsciously or not. And in the legs department, it's Kyron easily. He's the only one with legs. Both guys have no calves, but we all know Aaron has no quads either. Kyron was the only one filling out his shorts. And from the rear, Kyron is more shredded and separated. He was wider too, but Aaron does have better lats, and they do have similar tapers at the end of the day. The legs, again, are no contest for what it's worth, so I find these guys from the back are a bit closer. Aaron's back is great and round, but he needed to be a little bit sharper to highlight those 3D qualities in his physique. Personally, I think Kyron slightly edged him out here. So, was this a fair outcome? I think this was extremely deserved by Kyron. The champ should be beatable, and victory should not just be handed out to any champion. And it turns out most of you guys think the same. 90% of people who voted in my poll on my community tab believe Kyron deserved the win. And just by looking at Instagram comments and other feedback, a lot of the fans are on Kyron's side on this one, and are happy to see him win. And with that quick breakdown, it's not hard to see why he won. Kyron ended up winning just about every area. Now going forward, I think this is very exciting. This means the Olympia is wide open. Brandon could get another title. Kyron is technically the front runner now, beating the champion. And if you think about it, Jeremy's comeback is a little more feasible now after this turn of events. Moving on to Classic Physique, we had some pretty run-of-the-mill results. We didn't have any huge upsets, but here is your top 5 nonetheless. In 5th, you had George Herrera. 4th, Kellen Wilson. 3rd, Darren Sherbayev. 2nd, Logan Franklin. And in 1st, winning the Classic Physique division, you had Terrence Ruffin. Terrence absolutely dominated the show. He won with a perfect score, but really it was even less close than that. Logan wasn't close at all. Terrence had so much more maturity, was in better condition, and was just more complete. Now, unfortunately for us, this means that Logan will probably not be at the Olympia this year. He said before this show that Legion will be his last chance he is giving himself to qualify. Now, there are other smaller classic shows he could jump into and try to qualify there, but if you take him at his word, we will not be seeing him on the Olympia stage until next year. Going back to Terrence, we're all wondering now, how is he going to do at the Olympia? He fell from 2nd in the world 2 years in a row to just 6th place in 1 year. After that, a lot of people jumped to the conclusion saying that he would never place top 5 again. People were citing reasons like the judging criteria favors taller guys now, and those top spots are just being taken up by better guys like Rahman and Urs. Now, I'm not saying he'll be second again, but I definitely think it could be top 5. This package was better than the 2022 Olympia, but I think Terrence's screw up there was a lot more minor than we all thought. He wasn't that off, relatively speaking. Sure, there is a difference between 2021, 2022, and now, but it's not a humongous difference. Really, if he had just peaked slightly differently, he could have easily been in the top 5 last year. With that said, I think if he brings a package like he did at this show here, he can easily get back into the top 5. And finally, let's get into the open division. Now, I usually stick to the top 5, maybe the top 10, and recap them so I can give some more in-depth thoughts on each of them, but we had so many good names in the open division, I'm actually going to break down the top 5 a little bit more in depth, but I'm going to give you the full top 15. So, everyone that placed is right here. Starting with 15th, Mohamed El Imam, 14th, Kenneth Jackson, 13th, Lewis Breed, 12, Jan Turek, 11, William Martins, 10th, Dennis Reinhold, 9, Dorian Haywood, 8th, Martin Hernandez, 7th, Joel Thomas, and 6th, Max Charles. Those were places 15th through 6th. Now let's get into the top 5. Starting with 5th, Eric Wood. Eric just turned pro in 2021 and he's already had a great competitive season. He placed 5th at this year's New York Pro and obviously the same here. Eric has great shape and still has that small waist. He just needs more overall size, which is to be expected. He just turned pro 2 years ago. Hopefully he keeps that waist in check as he adds the size. That'll be a great combination, especially because he can already get in great condition too. In 4th place, we had Vitor Bov. Vitor is also a new pro, turning pro in 2021 as well. And really, he has the same story as Eric. He just needs to be bigger, and that will come with time. Now, I understand that he does have the long torso going on, but I still think his shape is pretty good. I do think he could have been a little bit sharper from the rear too, but the main thing he needs is that size. Nonetheless, this was a great placing for him. He was 7th in a lineup at the Charroux Classic France, a show with a pretty good level of competition, and before that, he was 5th at the Arnold Brazil in a weaker lineup. This was a good showing. It was close to France in terms of the level of competition, but he placed 5th here instead of 7th. And in 3rd, we had Justin Rodriguez. And this is just the same old in terms of what Justin brought to the stage. He really peaked in terms of his career at this point at the beginning of 2022 with the Arnold Classic and Boston Pro. Then he competed again and again, never really peaking his body properly, and he just looked worn out and tired. We all said he needed time off, but he competed all through the 2022 season up until the 2023 Arnold where he almost placed dead last. Then, and only then, did he finally take some time off. So did that time off actually help him? I think maybe he was a bit tighter, just a tad. He seemed to peak a little bit better, maybe had slightly thinner skin, but really, I think it's coming down to the lighting. Look at him at the Legion show last year. Both of these versions look like they're a month out. This is not show day condition. And besides the lighting, it's really hard to argue for actual change in Justin's physique between these two shows. So what should Justin do? For one, Justin should not be placing like this. He brought great packages before, he's been a top Olympian, but we just haven't seen that Justin in over a year now. If we had a 2022 Boston Pro Justin, he would have easily won this show with a perfect score. I'm 100% comfortable in saying that. I think what he needs to do is probably just go off of everything. He took about 7 months off between his last shows. He had the Arnold Classic in March to the Legion show in October. And keep in mind, that's not all downtime. Yes, there was 7 months off, but he still had to prep for the show, and who knows what he did in between that. So really, he needs more than just 7 months between shows. He needs a lot of actual downtime. As hard as it will be, he needs to go off everything for longer. He needs to come off the drugs, he needs to stop pounding food or going to the other extreme and doing a prep diet. He needs to just have a nice balanced diet, and he even needs to come off the gym. Yes, in the gym, he still needs to cut back. He needs to reduce the stress across the board that he's putting on his body. As well as taking time off and just trying to come in better condition, he should probably go back to his old coach, the Cement Factory. I think that would really help him because he needs to get it together. And his best packages were with Cement Factory. Like I said, he could have won this show easily if he brought those older packages like he had last year when he was working with AJ, but now Justin just can't crack the code. Coming in the runner-up spot, we had John Jewett. This was actually his open debut, and he's placing runner-up at a pretty good show. He was already qualified for the 212 Olympia by winning the Atlanta Pro 212 division, but he decided to see what he can do in open. He's one of those guys that has to cut hard to get under 212 pounds, so this was here with all the limits taken off. He did beat Justin Rodriguez, who is a mid-tier Olympia placing guy, and he was very close to the winner in my opinion. Now, in terms of his physique, he did have very good condition, one of the best conditionings on stage. I think he was even slightly better than the winner. He also had a good amount of size for going to the open on a whim, basically. He was max 15 pounds bigger than his last stage weight, but what really helps him is how compact he is, and he's very complete. He's not missing a body part. Now, going forward, he does have to return to the 212 class for the Olympia since he's only qualified for that division. I do think he has a good shot at an open career, though. He's proven that he's already fairly big enough to stand next to regular open guys, and he's really one offseason away from winning shows like this one. He may not be a top 10 Olympian after that offseason, but if he continues to train for open and build size, he can definitely pick off some lower tier guys as soon as next year, and really he's already started doing that with this show. And in first place, your 2023 Legion Sports Fest Pro Champion was Charles Griffin. I do think this was kind of close between him and John Jewett. I thought John was better in some areas, but Charles was just bigger structurally and had overall more mass, so I can see how he pulled this off. I think the perfect score Charles won with is a bit of an over-exaggeration though. Anyway, let's talk about Charles's physique, starting with the pros. Charles is wide. He takes up a lot of space. He just has that big rib cage. His midsection is still looking okay with that vacuum he rocks. And really, this is about as good as it's going to get. He was also in good condition and had some gnarly shots. Like that back double is nasty. So much vascularity and graininess. In terms of cons, he did seem a little downsized. Now from the Olympia, he was definitely improved. There's no doubt about that. But from his win in the Cali Pro in 2022, he looked smaller. Go watch Mark's Max Muscles video on that subject if you want to see the full breakdown. Another major thing people are talking about is the pec tear he suffered this summer. Was it that jarring? No. Hunter Labrada's, I think, is worse, for example. There's never a shot where it's not sticking out. Charles's tear is just a little hole in his chest that you can definitely notice, but it doesn't derail his entire upper body. Going forward, now that Charles is qualified for the Olympia, I think Charles is always going to be on the outside of the top spots. I think his ceiling this year is probably around 12th. His structure is always going to hold him back, unfortunately. Because while he does have some good elements in the wider rib cage and just being bigger, those abs are always going to hold him back. I think if he plays to his strengths and comes in this gnarly conditioning, he can place ahead of some guys based on that. His wideness will also help him fend off some of the newcomers who may not have that much size just yet. And with that, we are officially done with the 2023 regular season. The competitors lists are final, and we are less than 4 weeks out from the Mr. Olympia. There are shows before the Olympia, but keep in mind those only qualify competitors for the 2024 Olympia. So the Legion Sports Fest was the last regular show of the year, and I think it was a very good conclusion to the season. I would have liked to see some bigger names, but I say that at really every show. And really just about every big name is qualified at this point or already had the plan to sit the 2023 Olympia out anyway, so this is probably as good as we were going to get towards the end of the year. For being a last-ditch effort, a lot of competitors we did get ended up being some pretty good competition, and that goes for every division really. I think the show itself was pretty good too. The only major complaint I have is that it was actually really hot in there apparently, and some athlete slipped and fell on her ass. But they promptly mopped up the stage afterward. It was in Reno, so while not excusable, it is kind of expected. I really like the whole aesthetic they have going on too. It's a really unique show. It kind of has a superhero theme, not just in the marketing, but on stage as well. And I know I'm always clamoring for plain dark backgrounds, but I am partial to their comic book aesthetic in their background. The showrunners have also been very kind to me by reposting a lot of my content surrounding the show, which I appreciate so much. Thank you guys. All in all, I enjoyed the show, and it will definitely be one of those shows that gets a little bigger each year. We've had good lineups for the past 3 years in a row now, and I don't see that changing. So to finish this video, let me extend a congratulations to all the competitors at this show, and while I'm at it, every competitor from this season as well. And that's going to do it for me in this video. Don't forget to subscribe, because although we're done with the 2023 season, we'll soon start having pro shows for the 2024 season, and of course, stay tuned for my Olympia watch party live stream and coverage. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.